Welcome to VCR, a vintage cinema rewind. We're bringing old movies to new viewers.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Blake.
And remember, Blake, for this episode, no butter, no pastry, no sugar. We're on a diet.
I have a feeling they didn't say it like that in
Yeah,
the movie.
well, they were. It depends on their voices. It was repeated twice, I think. Whatever.
Maybe. I don't remember that, actually. That's...
It's a pretty funny quote and scene, and we'll get into it.
Cool. Yeah. This is part 2 of the Marilyn Monroe Month that we have. We're doing Some Like It Hot, probably Marilyn Monroe's most acclaimed film, and personally my favorite of the two that we watched.
I agree.
That being The 7-Year Itch.
It's the one that held up the most as well. The comedy of it.
Yeah, the comedy holds up extraordinarily well. Like, this was a really funny movie, and maybe one of the funniest endings to a movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's up there.
Final quote is incredible.
Yeah,
I died.
I love that. Yeah. And just that actor was funny, but anyways.
Yeah, it was good. Before we get into the movie, I have 2 quick show notes to just drop. The first is the reminder that we have the draft episode coming up in about a month's time now. I'm so excited about this. I've been working on it. I've got director, you've got genre,
yep.
And then our buddy Mike has wild card. And so we're drafting 3 movies around those categories, and then we're going to present them to you and each other. I have no idea what you're doing yet. You have no idea what I'm doing. I've started watching my movies. They're awesome, and I'm very excited to talk about them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the connections that each movie will have according to how we each decide to go about it. It's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, and to see where everybody ended up, because I was going one direction initially, and then I was worried that I might be dabbling too far into maybe where you were heading with things, and another direction I was like, this might be dabbling too much into what Mike might be doing. So I'm trying to...
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting because I don't think we have an idea. We're probably gonna try to flip it on its head a little bit, but then also do it accurately. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking about how far I could push the limits of what would be okay or not within our own rules. But anyway, so that's something to look forward to. The other thing I quickly wanted to mention in show notes is something that we were planning on talking about in the 7-Year Itch episode, and then we both completely forgot. And that's how the scenes where we get the Richard's imagination of the women that he has to throw away, how it's like a parody of romance films and romance novels, I'm sure, as well, which it was really well done, and I really appreciated the way that was done in the film.
Yeah, and it fits into his character because he's always editing those books too. I didn't even connect that until right now.
Yes!
But he's always editing those types of books and shortening them down to their most exciting scenes and turning up the the heat on them too.
Yeah.
So that's what he's doing in his mind throughout the movie. I didn't even think about that.
That's a great connection. I didn't think about that either, but you're spot on. That's exactly where those come from. And so to see them parodied like they are is one of the highlights of that movie. But we're not talking about that movie in full today. We've got Some Like It Hot, the movie from 1959.
Billy Wilder.
Yeah, another Billy Wilder film. Marilyn Monroe was the first name up on the credits, so one of her most important movies. So let's talk plot before we talk characters and people you may know first.
All right, so 2 down-on-their-luck musicians witness a mob hit in Chicago. They have to flee by joining an all-female band. They fake it till they make it in drag and go on an adventure down to Florida while trying their hardest to keep one step ahead of the mob and keep up the ruse with their bandmates. Shenanigans ensue after meeting a strikingly beautiful ukulele performer who is obviously Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Did you know that there was going to be the mob aspect to this movie going
Not
in?
at all.
Neither did I. I knew about the cross-dressing and how that was a central idea and theme to the movie, but
I had no idea.
yeah. Really?
Again, I had no, like, going into these Marilyn movies, I had no concept of what they could be because I've only heard, like, her referenced, and the fact that, like, nobody's really knows much about her movies referenced.
Right.
But, and, like, the photos and stills of her, but again, like, the actual plot or anything to do with the movies, I haven't seen really referenced, or it isn't that ingrained in pop culture, whereas it's like just her persona that is in pop culture. So I went into this blind.
Cool.
And so each little like twist, like, it was fun.
And I thought the mob side story that, I mean, it was crucial to pushing the plot forward and drove the plot.
And it's based on a real event.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just also to set up the setting, and they just kind of ran from there.
Yeah.
In a crazy way.
And I thought it added a lot of depth to the plot, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. It was really cool how they opened the movie really without the main characters, and then we kind of had to, like, learn who the main characters were in the, like, the first, like, 5-10 minutes, because the focus wasn't on them. It was more on, like, the mob story.
Yeah. And that barely, like, it only moved the plot forward in, like, key moments just to set up the story for the main characters.
Yeah, exactly. And so the characters and people you may know. So obviously Marilyn Monroe is our first character playing Sugar. She's the main singer and,
like, the performer. Like, she's the one doing the performance that is like put on by the band, but she's like the centerpiece.
Yeah, and she's also, like, a little ditzy in this as well. Like, she always gets caught drinking. She forgets to do things.
She, like, calls herself dumb, and she, like, repeatedly goes after the same type of guy, and always gets like, winds up in trouble.
Yeah, which is really funny because she's explaining the kind of guy that is bad for her, but she always ends up with, to Tony Curtis's character, who's full dressed in drag and is that person essentially in real life.
Not in real life, but in
the movie,
in his version of life.
Yeah. Marilyn Monroe, we've done a quite a in-depth discussion in the 7-Year Itch episode for her, so I didn't really want to go too much into detail again. I think we did a good job of hitting, like, the highlights of her life.
But this is how many years later after? It's 4 years later.
Yeah.
And quite a bit has changed in her life. Like, a lot of personal events have happened.
Yeah, she had the divorce with Joe DiMaggio, and then she ended up marrying, I believe, a screenwriter. And they actually had a relatively good marriage. He was considerably older than her, but I think they really appreciated one another. The one thing that I did want to mention about her life that I didn't know, and I was just reading up on some stuff after the fact, is she actually cut her honeymoon short with Joe DiMaggio, and they ended up going to Korea, and she ended up putting shows on for the troops in Korea. It was something that was really important to her.
I remember, like, seeing the I don't know if they're photos or what about Marilyn at like in Korea, and well, I didn't know it was Korea. I thought it was maybe Nam, but that was a different time period. But again, like, we're like, this is 50 years ago, or more than 50 years ago.
It's like 70
for us.
And this is another, like, really great role where she's utilized really well in the movie. We're going to talk a little bit later about maybe some behind the scenes issues that she had. And obviously, again, we talked about some of those personal struggles she had in the last episode as well.
And yeah, like, things have kind of progressed since what we talked about in the last episode a little bit, to a certain degree.
Things are definitely getting worse for her mentally at this point in time. And also, like, some of the substance abuse and stuff like that as well. Anyway, let's move on to some of our other characters. I'm going to start with Joe, who plays Josephine, who also plays Shell Oil Jr.
Yeah.
played by Tony Curtis, who's one of the two bandmates who are on the run from the mob. Tony Curtis is actually Jamie Lee Curtis's dad, and I just realized is also Grace Kelly's son. So there's quite a family tree there.
Yeah, long line and of great actors.
So Josephine is the character that Tony Curtis is playing in drag, that she's almost like exploring sugar and trying to like learn about sugar so that he can, in Shell Oil character, become closer with her.
Like, she's convinced that she's gonna go down to Florida with this band and find a nice young millionaire, like the son of a rich, like there's a bunch of old millionaires down there, and she's just hoping that one of them has a handsome son, and he's like,
Yeah. I also saw that $1 million back then was around $9 million US today. So it's a little bit different what a millionaire means back then as well. There's a little bit more substance
to it.
Yeah, exactly. And the Shell Oil Jr. character is pretty hilarious. Yeah. The accent is really great.
And it's a throwback to our other almost favorite on the podcast character or actor, Cary Grant.
So when I heard that accent, I was like, it's not quite British,
it's not quite transatlantic, exactly.
And so I'm sitting there like, this accent is really familiar, but I can't picture where it is. And I read that online and went, yes, that he nailed it.
And what I read online was that what everyone thinks that they're doing is Cary Grant's accent. It's actually him doing Cary Grant's accent. Like what's his name? Tony Curtis doing Cary Grant. Just a funny little comment.
Yeah, probably because he's probably like enhanced it. Yeah, exactly. So it's such a funny accent. It's a really intriguing character.
Yeah, like that was my favorite person, I think, besides Marilyn for other reasons. Like that character was so funny.
So I'm going to argue as well that our other main character, Jerry, who also plays Daphne, is also one of the best characters in the movie. It's pretty even par between
it really
the three of them.
is.
Each of them have some really great moments. So Jerry, Daphne are the other bandmate. They have an unfortunate trajectory throughout this movie. They don't get as lucky in developing a relationship with Marilyn Monroe. It's actually the eye of one of the actual rich millionaires that they catch. And hijinks ensue from there, which are hilarious. And that's where we get one of my favorite endings of a comedy movie of all time. And they're played by Jack Lemmon. Oh, I didn't actually mention what Tony Curtis is actually known for.
Go for that.
So Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis actually did a few other films together, and
they were huge at the time. These guys were at the top. This was
their peak. This was their peak. Jack Lemmon went on to have a really interesting career throughout the 70s and 80s, but Tony Curtis, his peak was right around this time. He had a few other hits in the 60s, and then his career really dropped off after that. But he played one of the main characters in The Sweet Smell of Success, Spartacus, which is a film that I've talked about before and really enjoyed, The Persuaders, and then which is a TV show. And like I said, that his peak was around the 50s and 60s. Jack Lemmon is known as one of the most successful tragicomedians of his time, for playing characters who are tragic but also really funny. He starred in several other Billy Wilder films on top of this, and some of his later roles that you might know him from, these are also kind of in the 80s, so it's a little bit still back from our typical who you may know or where you may know them from. But he was also in Grumpy Old Men, and The China Syndrome, which sounds like an interesting movie.
I really want to see The Apartment also, which is another
Billy Wilder classic.
Billy Wilder classic, exactly. So And I've heard of Glengarry Glen Ross. I've heard it like referenced. I don't know anything about it, so that's like an area that I would like. I want to keep going with just this like area, but there's so many good areas of film. So
I think this is something that's come up from this podcast that I never really thought about, is how underappreciated movies from the 50s and 60s are.
Really.
They're really good.
Yeah.
And they hold up surprisingly well.
Yeah, Some Like It Hot. They kind of started this concept of men dressing up as women and trying to fake it has been around for like centuries, basically, if you go back in like history.
Like Shakespeare even had acts or plays like that.
Yeah, and then, but this was like the first really big mainstream film that did that. And like everybody our age has seen White Chicks.
Yes.
And like even like Miss Doubtfire, things like that. Like there's a lot of people who replicated this, but Billy Wilder really nailed how to do this without going too like lowbrow.
Yeah.
He like kept it like it's not just jokes about men dressed as women.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it. It's not just like a base level men in drag sexual stuff. Like White Chicks took it to the opposite of this.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense. That White Chicks is very lowbrow humor. And that's how also actually Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon brought that to their roles a little bit too. Yeah. Like they thought about what it would be like to be men dressing as women, and they practiced a bit, but they also held off from practicing some bits.
Yeah, I think we saw the same thing where they actually had a person who dresses in drag regularly, like a drag queen or something like that.
Yeah. For
that time. Cabaret dancer, a male cabaret dancer, so that he was teaching them how to walk in heels, and either Jack Lemmon or
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah, it was Jack Lemmon who's like, I don't want to learn exactly how to like walk in heels as a woman would. I want to be in the movie as a man wearing heels.
Yeah, and be uncomfortable and not quite like
doing
have
it
that
right
walk
and the
down.
balance and
Exactly. So there's a couple other characters that we should talk about, and then there's one other actor that I want to quickly mention. So characters, we have to talk about Spats Colombo. He's the head of the mob syndicate that really pushes the plot forward. A, great name.
Yeah.
B, all of the other names for all of the other mob characters in this movie are really great. Like we've got Toothpick Charlie, Little Bonaparte, and some other characters as well that have similar names.
Like Spats Colombo is kind of based on Al Capone, apparently.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's one scene
great name
near the beginning of the film that's actually directly related to something that happened in real life with Capone. Did you see a name in the opening credits that kind of maybe jogged your memory at all?
No.
Okay. So when the credits rolled, there was a name that popped up, Edward G. Robinson, and I thought, I know exactly who that is. And I spent the entire movie looking for him. He's the older guy in Soylent Green.
Yes. Okay, He's
not in this movie. I looked all movie long and was like, where is he? So afterwards, I looked it up, and it's Edward G. Robinson Jr. It's his son.
Holy shit.
Who's the I can't remember what his name is. I'm going to...
Oh, I thought it was going to be the bellhop, because that would be hilarious.
Johnny Paradise, the like charismatic like guy who's also kind of like affiliated with the mob. He's the one who like jumps out of the
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was Edward G. Robinson's son. Very rocky relationship. He had a really troubled life as the son of a famous parents because both his parents were famous.
And it's that early in history, like in the 1900s, where you could just neglect people.
His life, it reflects a little bit Marilyn Monroe's. Like they're almost kind of opposite in a way, but they both meet pretty tragic ends. This is really his only significant role in film as well. Unfortunately, I thought he did a great job in the role as well, but just too many other struggles in life to really do any more.
He only died 1 year after the death of his father.
Yeah, he was in his 40s. So, the director we've mentioned, Billy Wilder. This movie feels like a response to the 7-Year Itch. After learning about the backstory of it and having to make the Hays codes and having to make those significant edits to the screenplay. This movie was actually made without the approval of the Film Institute at this point in time. So it had a little bit of a slightly different release, and that's why they were able to do things like have the cross-dressing and some of the other things in the movie, because that wasn't acceptable at that point in time.
Okay.
Bit of a trailblazer in terms of movies, and this was actually the movie that made the Film Institute reevaluate and start to think about whether or not the Hays Code was still appropriate. And so it took about 5 to 10 years after the movie was released before it was finally abolished, but things kind of loosened up over that time until that point.
Okay. There's this one character that I did want to mention just because I just stumbled upon his IMDb.
Sure.
Harry Wilson. He's one of the gangsters, the really ugly looking buddy gangster. He has 346 credits.
Wow, acting credits.
Yeah.
That's wild. He was a very, he felt like a character actor that you would see in a lot of movies. He had that face, he had that voice kind of thing that he would have those
he would always
roles.
be that gangster sidekick.
Yeah.
Either the second or third man to the main villain.
Yeah, pretty great screen presence from him.
Yeah. And he's just so noticeable.
Yes.
You look at him and you're like, holy shit.
That's a face.
Yeah.
Who's this movie for? This is the Marilyn Monroe movie to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah. You could just watch the clips of her subway scene and you basically get everything great from everything referenceable or worth knowing, I guess, from
the 7-Year
Itch. But she just shines so bright in this. You're just staring at her, watching her be the person that she is on screen.
Yeah, and so multi-dimensional, multi-talented. She's able to sing really well, and her performance is notable, noteworthy.
Yeah, and what I would say is even she kind of recognized she's an okay or a good singer. She's a okay or good actor. She's a little bit of everything, but she ties it all together in a way that only she could, because her presence is just so gravitational.
Yeah, exactly. Landmark movie to understand her career and why her performances are still to remembered or not remembered to this day.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty good romantic comedy.
Yeah.
And not a traditional romantic comedy, I would say.
I agree. Yeah.
And that makes it kind of special. I'm glad I watched this with Jess. Her and I really appreciated watching this one together. So I think you could also make an argument this is a pretty good date night movie because it's non-traditional.
Yeah. Let's say you're 21 or 22 and you're in college and you have a first date with a girl or a guy who really likes movies. This would be a perfect first date material movie.
Yes.
For any young person to watch with someone who's I love film.
Yeah. And especially somebody who's never seen this movie and doesn't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah, because there's so many old movies to watch, but this is one that would be really fun as a first watch in that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, it would be special.
Yeah.
Those are really my who and when to watch it.
Film junkies and Marilyn Monroe fans.
Yeah, are top of the list. But I think this movie is so entertaining that just about anybody could watch it and gain a lot of value from it.
Yeah. Would Kelvin watch it?
I don't know if he'd watch it. Well, okay.
For our listeners.
I'm going to walk that back.
Yeah.
So our friend Kelvin is a bit of a romantic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in that aspect, I think if we explain to him how great of a romantic comedy this is, I think he would maybe actually watch it. I think the black and white, I can't remember. The way it's filmed, black and white, I think that's going to maybe turn some people off. at the beginning, but I think that's something that once you watch a couple black and white movies, it becomes less apparent.
You zone into the movie and you forget that it's black and white.
Exactly.
Mostly, so yeah, if it's done well.
Yeah,
and this was done by choice and not because of technology. So that is where like it fits very well here. So this would be a great starter for introducing someone into black and white film.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's rated one of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah, so you're starting off on a pretty high note.
Of course, yeah.
Where to watch? So right now it's streaming through MGM's kind of add-on channel through Prime, so you do have to get that additional subscription. Otherwise, you can rent it on a whole number of different platforms. Okay, I think that is the point in time where we cut her off right now. As spoiler-free as possible. Go and watch this movie. Go and watch this movie with a partner. And come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the film.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Cool. Themes. Let's talk themes first. Obviously, romance is kind of top of the list here. And what's really interesting about the film, and I'm going to say it right now, I had no idea where this movie was going throughout the film. Like, I had no idea how this was going to end. And that's what I kept saying to Jess. Like, I don't think this is going to end well, but I really don't know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
And it kind of ends like a little bit Hollywood, like movie magic kind of thing.
In such a nice way. Like,
yeah.
It ends
it's believable, almost.
Yeah.
Like, without outlandish everything is leading up to the ending scene. Yeah, it worked. It worked really well. But it's really interesting because there's a bit of trust and deception elements to that, right? Because Tony Curtis's characters are basically like learning Marilyn Monroe's character and
like her secrets and then feeding them back to her in a manipulative way.
And like obviously not completely kosher on the up and up. But like in the end their relationship just kind of works, and he even says at the end, he's like, you know, like, even though I lied to you and like I wasn't honest with who I am.
Yeah, and that he was exactly the type of guy that she was trying to avoid.
Yeah. And she was like, you know what? I don't even care.
Yeah, like she accepted it.
Yeah.
Because he's like a certain version of that. Yeah. That isn't that bad. Like he's overall a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the flip side, Jack Lemmon's character has the most hilarious trajectory with Osgood's character and their romance. And that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie and this has actually come up before, even a couple times now. Apparently, I'm a sucker for the scene where it flashes between two different storylines.
Yeah.
And we get like two like very different, I guess, moods to them. And what different characters are doing at different times. Because when Osgood and Daphne are dancing together, and it doesn't look like they're having a fun night, and then we learn afterwards that they had like
it was like amazing,
the best night ever.
like his face, Daphne's face as he's dancing with him, it's so serious that you think that he's just like I hate myself, I just have to keep this ruse up, but he's like, after it's kind of revealed that he's actually like just so into it. Like he's
just had a really great night.
Yeah, he's become the character, and the dance is serious.
Yeah. And he's kind of like singing, like humming along the tune. Yeah. I was humming that all week, to be honest. Yeah. There's kind of all of those elements, and that's actually how the movie ends similarly with their characters, and makes for maybe the greatest line to end a comedy of all time. Yeah. Well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah. And I have the photo up of like that final scene. So
it kind of looks like Jason Segel right there.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Jack Lemmon is what Blake's referencing, and the Osgood, like, that character was so funny.
Yeah.
Like, he's like a creep, but like a lovable creep. He's the actual millionaire, and he's been hitting on Jack Lemmon's character this whole time. And yeah, it was just like a great. They played well together on screen, and then yeah, just that ending. And honestly, like the ending, nobody's perfect, kind of like sums up everybody's character.
Yes, very
Because,
well.
like,
Everybody is deeply flawed.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, like, if you look past that, it's like the whole movie itself, because like Marilyn, like, she had so many problems.
Right, behind the camera.
Yeah, and like the problems with filming and everything, it all comes together with just that final line, and it produced something amazing out of all of these flawed characters.
Yeah, and funny enough, this is effects and filming, but we kind of weave between effects and filming and themes anyway.
Yeah.
But the line itself actually was just a placeholder at the time. Like, they didn't think they were gonna actually end the movie on that. They actually were like, we'll just put it there for now and we'll come up with something better later.
Yeah.
And they couldn't ever come up with something better. But it was perfect. It was so funny. I laughed out loud hard when he said that.
Yeah, and honestly, like, for me, like, the first act of the movie felt very, like, I wasn't getting drawn in.
Right.
But like halfway through, I was like, this is actually pretty good. And then by the end, I was laughing that hard. And I was like, okay, that was a great fucking movie.
Yeah, it's a movie that does take a little while to get going, and the direction of it, because they're setting up so many things.
Yeah.
And what I really like about the movie is, though, that they take the time to set that stuff up.
Yeah.
Because if you try to explain this person to somebody, and I think you did a good job explaining the plot, but when going into this, I knew that they were going to cross-dress for some sort of reason, and that they were going to end up in this musical group with Marilyn.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is kind of like outlandish. Like, I don't really understand how they're going to jump through all these hoops to end up in this situation.
And like the whole train scene, you're like, how does that connect? Because I remember seeing that previously when we were looking at at Cary Grant movies and deciding which one to do.
Right.
Yeah.
When we did the Oscars earlier
Yeah,
this
the
year.
Oscars, yeah.
But they take the time to explain it. Like, they set up the whole subplot or maybe even main plot of the mob. They take the time to explain while this comedy group is or this music group is missing the two instruments that these guys just happen to play. And they know that this group is missing that as well.
Yeah.
But they can't get it in because they're men. So there's all these like nice little connections that really tie the plot in well.
With that setup, they set up so many recurring jokes, which were so enjoyable. Like the "Oh, positive blood."
Yes,
like
that comes up a few times.
Yeah. They just like
the callbacks.
Yeah, the callbacks and every little thing. It was just very good.
So let's talk more effects and filming. Something we had talked about in the last episode was that Monroe specifically had in her contract that she would not do black and white films, that she looked better in color, so that was her preferred. So that kind of surprised me when I started watching this movie, because I was like, wait a second, this shouldn't be in black and white. But Billy Wilder actually convinced her to do it in black and white for this, because of how bad Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon looked in their makeup.
Yeah.
He showed her some test footage of them, and apparently she said they looked ghoulish.
Yeah, like greenish and ghastly.
Yeah, so it was actually done to make things look more realistic, which is cool, because black and white, obviously, for modern day viewers, it's a less real looking approach at film.
Yeah. But this allowed that realism to still be there with them being in makeup.
I was reading a little bit about Roger Ebert recently, and he's been on record for saying that his preference would be that all movies be in black and white, because he said it adds like a mysticism to them a little bit. Like, it makes them more fictional. And so it's like a dreamlike kind of film, and it. He said he prefers it in that medium for those kind of reasons, which is interesting.
And it's similar to what we were saying about 7-Year Itch, where like placing limits on certain aspects of either like writing or filming, like whatever technique you're doing, setting limits kind of allows you to like explode the box, kind of like you're
Yeah.
supposed to stay within this box, but then you do something that's so great within that box that
Right.
like it's something better, and that I think works here, and I think that's probably also why like Marilyn trusted Billy Wilder to like be able to pull this off too.
Yeah.
And she looked amazing the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Jess did say though that she was more attractive in color than in black and white, so she made that comment.
Okay, yeah. I think it allowed her like expressions and like gravitas kind of to shine a bit, even though like obviously like she looked absolutely amazing in 70-Year Itch. She did still in this, although there was like some changes, but she became a little bit more of a woman, I guess, if that's a way.
We're getting deep here.
Yeah, I don't know, but like she filled out a little bit more for this role by this time in her life. So she's not like she's a little thicker, which is great for today's audiences.
It was also she kind of pushed that standard forward though as well, right? Like that was definitely something that she was known for.
Yeah, true. Overall, yeah. And probably because of what she was like in this movie. And oh man, technical, if we're talking like what's this section called again?
Effects and filming?
Effects and filming. Her dresses were phenomenal.
Yeah, they were.
Like
they were
that,
really
that, and like just the filming, like the lighting on her when she was singing that one, the like most famous song of her singing, like it was like a sadder song. I forget what it was called at the moment.
Like when she was singing on the piano at the end?
Yeah. Like that, the filming was just great. Like the lighting of it, like
it did
it,
add
like,
it was magical.
Yeah, like centered on her face and like yeah, it was just a great scene there.
And you're right that it probably does work out a little bit better in that black and white in that sense. And that's where we saw in Harakiri when we did that episode that you can utilize the black and white a little bit different.
Yeah, so, the contrast and the focus, it all it becomes easier to focus certain things, and like you're not like a lot of the time when Marilyn's on screen, you're just wowed by her beauty, and then in this, you actually like just take away a little bit of that color, and you could see like her more so.
Yeah, and it would be cool to see a little bit more black and white come back in today's world.
Like the only recent movies that I know of are like the Sin Cities, and those are
and they were done
phenomenal,
extraordinarily well.
Except for maybe the blood in them, but besides that, because it is more comic booky. But
yeah, still
besides
great
that,
movies.
Yeah,
great reference too. I wasn't thinking about Sin City.
Oh, phenomenal.
So Marilyn Monroe was actually the one who heard that they were doing this movie and was really interested in making it. Like, Billy Wilder wasn't even considering her for the part because they didn't even think they could get her. They thought she was too big of a star at this point.
And he had already worked with her, right?
So, so he had already known some of the problems he had going in.
He literally said that he didn't want to work with any of like that type of like star again.
Prominent actor, yeah.
It's not prominent. Like he'd be fine working with
difficult.
Difficult. That's what he swore that he would never work with the fragile and unpredictable star again. There were so many issues with the technical filming of this film, but because of her, the problems she was going through at the time.
She was at this point deep into her addiction with various prescription pills,
barbiturates.
Yeah, and so she was having a lot of like memory problems and not being able to focus and stay concentrated throughout the filming of it. She was late again, which was a problem in the 7-Year Itch constantly, and really couldn't memorize her lines because of all the mental health stuff she had going on.
She was struggling with depression after suffering a miscarriage in 1957, which developed insomnia, drinking, putting on weight, and she overdosed on barbiturates twice in 1958.
Oh, I didn't realize that as well.
So like there was a lot there. So like there was pressure because of all of that with her relationship with Arthur Miller. Yeah, there's all kinds of problems that like all kinds of things that she was dealing with. They made it work for this film by doing things to like it took 50 takes for some of the shots.
Yeah, upwards
And
of like, and it's little stuff too that you wouldn't think of. Like when she delivers the line, "It's me, sugar." That took like 47 tries because she kept saying like, "Sugar, it's me,"
or "It's sugar, me."
yeah, like weird
Yeah.
stuff like that. Just her mind wasn't firing on all cylinders at this point.
And like sometimes she would just stay in her dressing room or trailer for like the whole night and not come out to shoot. And then another thing, I forget which scene it was, but there was a scene where she had like another like small set of lines. Oh, she was looking for the whiskey.
When they were in the
the
washroom.
drawers.
Yeah.
Yeah. She just kept saying like I'm looking for the bourbon or the whiskey. Like she couldn't get the line right.
Yeah.
So they had to write it inside of each drawer.
So they started with writing in the drawer that she was supposed to open, but then she couldn't remember which drawer to open.
Yeah.
So they put it in every drawer, and she still couldn't quite get it.
Yeah.
Which is tragic. It's sad. I shouldn't be laughing at it, but actually, in terms of performances, Tony Curtis was asked why his character was so much more feminine than Jack Lemmon's character, and he said that the reason why it came across like that is because he was so scared to be playing a woman that basically like he just became like really stiff and tightly wound and he became more like
timid
shy.
And
timid and shy. Lemmon was just like more like fluid in the role, like he was having fun with it a lot more, and so that like had the flip side where his body language comes off more masculine because of that, because he isn't really overthinking it, which is funny. Like it
especially
adds, like,
was it his character who's like I'm a girl
yes, exactly,
because he had to like convince himself like I'm a girl, and that works so perfectly with like how he actually was acting it.
And then we get the part like later where he's like I'm a man,
I'm a boy yeah.
That's a great callback scene. Actually, on that note as well, when the announcement of their engagement happens, the test audiences laugh so hard that they miss all of the dialogue in that
for the
scene.
Following scenes. So and that's why they added the maraca scene in, which is like one of the worst scenes. If you were to like rank all the scenes, it's one of the least liked scenes from the film. I've seen it like referenced after in researching after. Like people are like the whole movie was great except for that dumbass maraca scene, and it turns out like that was added in just because audiences of the time were laughing their asses off so hard.
That they couldn't hear anything else that was following that.
So they had to have like a filler scene so that they could continue after that for the audience to die down.
Which is awesome. And even like maybe even early to like the sitcom laugh track kind of deal, right? Where you have to like break
pause,
in between, but it was because of like actual laughter and not just like added in laughter. That's like the big effects in filming points that I wanted to make. So
I think I would talk about the set. The hotel is they call it like in the movie it's called the Seminole Ritz Hotel. And it's in Florida down in the film. And so they filmed all the outside locations at an actual hotel called Hotel del Coronado. And it just looked perfect. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is so like iconic 1929, like the architecture and everything. I just loved it because it set the time just as much as like all of the stuff in Chicago, but like that could have been faked really well. The Hotel del Coronado is really interesting just because it's a real place that basically stood the test of time due to, I think it was World War II. Like they kind of abandoned it during World War II or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
And then they came back and it was it was still in its same shape. Like all of the structure and everything was great, so they updated it a little bit. And then like they just repainted it or something, but it was still basically in the same state that it was in like 1929 after like the stock market crash. They didn't like update anything.
Oh, interesting.
So that's one of like that's why that hotel was chosen because it fit the exact time, because that was the like one of the biggest hotels at that time.
Right.
And so it was like just the perfect setting for that whole Florida adventure that they go on.
Yeah, and the setting and the time period in which this movie takes place is really well done. Like, it builds like a nostalgia for that time. It'd be
even in the 50s it would have,
yeah,
and now as well.
Yeah, it's cool, and I really like when films do that because it makes them less of a product of their time, right? To make it like take place in the past, because it doesn't get shoehorned. Like it's not like a movie that maybe the music doesn't quite work, because it's music that's held up since then. That still works and that you recognize and you think about that time period in which it's from. It's not like music that's, maybe outdated at this point, or like, I don't know, Taboo or something like that. Right? If we watch some movies from like the mid 2000s and some of their scores, if they used like music around then, it would probably like date the movie and not in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. And like the jazz that the band was set around is so like classically demure that like it works because it's always similar, the same. The phrase "some like it hot," I'm probably not going to get this right, but the way jazz was introduced at like in the 1920s, and like the way it's remembered by people at that time who would have ended up watching this movie, the phrase was like, "some like their music sweet, some like it hot." And that's how jazz came in. Like jazz came in as like a hot new musical style,
right?
Because it was so like catchy and raw and like new. So that's where the phrase, like the movie's title, comes from too.
Yeah, and so we're moving into score here a little bit, and you're right. Like the jazz is utilized segue. Really well. Yeah. It's utilized really well. It's like that 1920s jazz that I really like. I don't know, I really jammed with. It was good. I'm a big fan of jazz.
Yeah.
So they were using like sharp brassy strings, and that was to create tension during certain scenes and certain moments, especially like when the gangsters appeared. Like I really appreciated the way that it was done. And again, it's a little bit that nostalgia feel for that earlier time period. And Marilyn Monroe playing the ukulele was fun to watch.
And like
too.
she looked like she was having fun with it, like dancing along with it. And then like the like Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis were like he was like spinning the cello, not the cello, the what was it? It was a bowed flute. I forget exactly what it is. They reference it a bunch in the movie, and the bullet holes in it were awesome.
Yeah, the bullet holes were a nice touch.
Yeah, and
they come back later. It's another callback to earlier in the film and ties like the plot together really well.
Yeah, and like that's another thing where like they actually this is like a scene favorite thing. I'm sorry to shove it in here, but
no worries.
When they're climbing down the outside after they realize that the gangsters are there at the hotel, they like go past their window and they're almost caught. They pretend to keep going, and then they come back up. Like that was like I was like thank you. Like why does everybody always like keep going when they're obviously going to be caught? They like came back in the window,
right?
So like they just planned it all so well. Like,
they were pretty intuitive characters.
Yeah, exactly.
They knew what to do in certain moments. And that probably speaks to like the past troubles they've been in, right? Because they owe a bunch of money to a bunch of other people in Chicago.
Yeah. They
and
bet their coats already. Like the overcoats. Yeah.
I like the Grease Lightning reference early in there. I actually looked that up. Yeah, the dog that they bet on during the race, or the horse, was named Grease Lightning.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, which I actually looked up, and the movie Grease Lightning isn't a reference to
Grease?
That. Yeah, Grease Lightning is actually a term from like the 1800s when they were first like dabbling with machinery.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool to read up on that. Huh. Look back at the times. Did you watch the trailer for this?
No, I didn't.
I did, and I really enjoyed it. And part of the reason why is because the tagline, it's like very old-timey trailer, and like there's taglines that just pop up on screen.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So the tagline for the movie is, "Not since Scarface, so much action." And that's where they're showing like the mob stuff.
Yeah.
And then it goes, "Not since the Marx Brothers, so much comedy."
Okay.
And then the last one is, "Not since the 7-Year Itch, so much Marilyn."
Oh, that's awesome.
Really great tagline for the film.
That's really good. Huh.
So Legacy. This movie wasn't produced with the approval from the Motion Picture Production Code, the people who enforced the Hays Code. And the reason for that is because there's the LGBT-related themes throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Like the cross-dressing, for example. And even how, like, Daphne, Jack Lemmon's character, and Osgood may end up together at the end of that
Potentially,
movie.
yeah.
This is kind of that pivotal point in time with movies. So this movie is pretty important to cinema and cinematic history because it
allowed for so much more to come after it.
Yeah, it's the great like tipping point of when like taboo topics, like this stuff that isn't accepted yet in larger society, it can actually be shown on the screen.
Yeah, it's like what they could have done with 7-Year Itch, they actually did in a different context in this.
And spoilers for one of my movies in the draft, similar in how they approach certain topics, way ahead of their time.
Spoilers.
Yeah, something to look forward to. I gotta sprinkle a little bit of stuff in as I go. So the legacy of this movie is that it's considered now to be one of the best movies of all time. It's actually on Roger Ebert's greatest film list, which he usually would release.
Well-respected, yeah.
Yeah, one of the most well-respected film critics of all time. And he would have like 1 or 2 movies, absolute max, that he would add in every year to his greatest list movie, and this one made it in. It took a few years for him to really appreciate the film, but it was something that he came back to over time and was like, you know what? Not since the 7-Year Itch, so much Marilyn.
Yeah.
Very, very important to comedy and even just acceptance of some of the topics and how to portray them later in history.
Yeah.
Sequels, prequels, and reboots. So the film is based on a 1935 French film called Fanfare of Love. Really interesting. At the time, they couldn't actually get the screenplay from it. It was kind of lost at that point in time. Wow. So they actually adapted it from the 1951 German remake. So originally in French, adapted into German, and then they adapted a different adaptation from the German version into English.
That's hilarious because the French version would have been super sexual.
Yeah.
The German version would have been very like blunt. I don't know what kind of humor for that time, but or like maybe humorless. And then they just adapted it to be what it was, and like interesting.
Yeah. And something of note though that's really important that Billy Wilder contributed to the film is that he wrote and added that gangster subplot into the film.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty
he Americanized that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it makes it definitely makes it an American film, right? Because it takes place at like a crucial point in American history. And something that's just really important to understanding American history and America today. Built on blood.
Yeah. Blood and Prohibition whiskey.
Prohibition whiskey. After that, subsequent to this, 1972, there was a musical that was released that was based on the film called Sugar, and it started on Broadway. Excitingly, if you're a fan of Broadway, Sugar is coming to Broadway again later this year.
Oh,
so you can check that out in November.
That's unreal. And also to bring that up again, the Marilyn biopic.
Yes, which is coming to Netflix in September, starring Ana de Armas, and I'm really excited to watch that at this point. That's going to be something that releases, and I'm going to watch it the night of release, I think.
How are they going to... This might be wrong to say, but how are they going to make Ana de Armas thick enough?
That might be wrong to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard early screenings, people weren't fully on board with her acting.
Yeah.
However, it's a really interesting analysis of her character as well, because Marilyn Monroe wasn't completely enthused about playing the character of Marilyn Monroe, because
Sorry, Anna de Armas wasn't?
no, Marilyn Monroe
Wasn't.
didn't. She had her whole persona, right? Like the Marilyn Monroe persona was so different from who she felt she was as a person that she really struggled with that, because she had like two personalities, right?
Okay,
her personality that she portrayed outwardly
to the
and
world.
who she was.
Yeah. And honestly, I think you don't have to have like a perfect Marilyn Monroe body double to get the effect that Marilyn had on becoming the icon that she is.
Yeah.
Because it's all about, obviously her beauty is an aspect, but she had this presence, and like it's almost undescribable.
And she was a pretty smart business person too, right? Like she advocated for herself at a time where women were lesser on the screen, like they were less important.
Yeah, and she like built in, like she started her own production company and things like that to address that.
Exactly.
And so I retract my previous statement.
Well, and that was something that she didn't want to be remembered as either, right? Just a blonde bimbo. And that was something that was really important to her to evolve as a character in her films.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine how far she could have gone if she kept going.
I know, it's so tragic how her life was cut so short.
Yeah.
And there's so many people throughout history, so many like creative individuals who we didn't get enough time with.
Yeah.
One other version of this film that I do want to mention is the Bollywood version that came out in 1975. Called Rafu Shakar. So if you're interested in a Bollywood spin on this, and I actually think that it was received fairly well as well, you could go check that out as well.
Interesting.
Less Marilyn.
Could be fun. Yeah. And then there's White Chicks.
Like, it's obviously connected, like it's obviously inspired by, but I didn't realize like how prevalent the idea and the theme of cross-dressing has been throughout,
as a
like,
comedic thing.
Like it's throughout human history.
Like it's purely comedic. There's never any like serious movies about it, unless it's like maybe a biopic or something like that, or a documentary about real people. But like it's been there for so long. We're at a tipping point almost, where like, would it continue to be fun or funny in the future? Who knows? Like could White Chicks be made today?
That's a question and a half that I think
Some Like It Hot could be made today, because it's not focused on like the intricacies and like the differences, and like it's not focused on the sexuality. It's not like making fun of anybody. It's just like situational humor that they elevated. But if it was made today, could they do it right?
I think there'd be a lot of pressure to do it right. And that pressure...
Who could pull that off?
Exactly. And who would want to pull that off?
Yeah, like who would want to test those waters today?
Exactly. Because you could really tank your career if something comes out like, that's not up.
We've exited the parody period of like the early 2000s with all those like superhero movie and... the Scream parody ones, what are those called?
Yeah, like the horror, like a Scream, like it's like a parody of horror.
Well, yeah, Scream is, but then they took it a step further with the
Scary Movie.
Scary Movie, yeah.
Yeah, which is a parody of a parody, basically.
Yeah. So though that era is over, and now it would be frowned upon. Like White Chicks, could it be done again? I don't think so. I don't know.
I'm sure there would be a lot of backlash.
Yeah, but like everything's cyclical. So maybe in 2059, 100 years after this movie came out, they'll be able to just nail it. That'd be hilarious.
Let's talk our personal review and the partner factor.
All right.
Just I both really enjoyed this movie, and I would rewatch this in a heartbeat.
I want to watch this with Annabelle. just because of our schedules, she couldn't watch any of it. Like sometimes she comes in halfway, or sometimes she's working on something and I'm watching it and I see her just staring at the TV while she should be typing.
Right.
And she's like fully engrossed.
Yep.
It didn't happen this week, so like it just couldn't, like I think she would love this one. And I think it would break that like little barrier that she has between old movies.
Yes.
Because it is so timeless.
Yeah, it is very timeless. And I'm glad you mentioned that again, because I do think that it may be the old movie barrier breaker. Mm-hmm. Like, the very unique, this might be the only film on our list at this point in time.
And know what I would say like really hooked me, like the thing that hooked me the most was when Tony Curtis was being the millionaire, and
yes.
and Marilyn went out to the yacht. And that whole, oh my God, that whole scene of him pretending, like he went almost too far, like just all, like I was like, stop going so far into this act that you can't feel anything for the other sex. Yeah. And like I was like how is he going this far?
There's just so many gags involved.
Yeah.
When he's on the boat and he opens the door and he's like, and this is the closet.
Yeah. And then my favorite one, the line that I wrote down that was my absolute favorite was like he's pretending to be this rich guy who went to like Eton or like one of the British schools,
right.
Whatever. Marilyn's like he mentions water polo, and Marilyn is like water polo.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Marilyn's like, water polo, isn't that like such a dangerous sport? And she's all like in awe of him, and he's like, yeah, 2 ponies drowned under me. Like he's like because he's such a low like class person, acting so perfectly as this rich guy, and he knows that she has no idea, and like polo is played on horses but water polo isn't.
Yeah.
And that was just so perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It's said so seriously and nobody reacts to it.
Yeah.
So it takes you a second to be like, wait, what did she just say?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many lines like that just nailed the comedy.
Punch. They just punch. They're very punchy lines.
Yeah, and like above their weight, and you have to think about it.
You know what Jack Lemmon's character reminded me of, or other portrayals? The Merry and Pippin of Lord of the Rings. Like, he had that same kind of, I don't know, if smartness is quite it, but just the comedic timing,
like the quickness and the timing,
and just like the bubbliness to his character is really reminds me of them.
And like that whole scene with it was Sugar and Junior as Tony Curtis was playing, when Sugar, like they go into the boat and there's a big marlin on the wall. And Sugar's admiring the large fish trophy, and she's like, what is it? And Junior's like, it's a member of the herring family. And then Sugar's like, a herring? Isn't it amazing how they get those big fish into those little glass jars? And then he's like, they shrink when they're marinated. Like he's just so quick at delivering those like punchy lines, like you said. It's just like so dumb, but she's so dumb like,
and so unsophisticated.
Yeah, like, and both of them are. And he's just so convincing with that accent, playing the Cary Grant character. Yeah, like so perfect.
Oh man.
I don't know. What are we in a certain section, or are we talking about all of this?
We're wrapping up right now, talking our favorite scenes and quotes.
Honestly, that whole scene of him playing Junior on the boat is perfect. Yeah,
that's one of the highlights for you, eh?
Yeah, 100%. Like that. Like I want to show that to everybody. I like that first
interaction a lot as well. Like when they're on the beach and he's like making up the stuff where she's like, "Why do you have all these shells?" Because he tells the kid to scram, basically. Yeah. And he's just like,
I collect them.
It reminds me of the company that we own that made me who I am today. You're from Shell?
Just so perfect. And like honestly, like the way he was like, I can't feel anything for women. Like,
Yeah.
he kept it going so long that like eventually I was laughing at the concept.
Yes.
Like
same.
so hard.
So I really appreciate it as well. Again, it's a really stark contrast to the 7-Year Itch, and
Yeah,
I'm glad we
yeah.
watched them because I think it added to the comedic aspects of their characters as well. Maybe we do say you should watch the 7-Year Itch and watch these as back-to-back films.
Yeah.
And it might add to the humor of this movie.
Even just like the little thing of is it Joe who's with Sugar?
Joe is Tony Curtis.
Yeah, okay.
Josephine.
So
Shell Oil.
Yeah, so when he's being Shell Oil, he can't start the boat and like have it go forwards. He just backs it up.
So hard.
Yeah, I know.
It's so funny because I recently did that on a golf trip.
Oh, yeah.
We had to back out of the zone, and I ended up just backing up through the entire course. And like all these people who are professional golfers were looking at me so offended by it.
Yeah, and like you were just doing like
I was doing it for like comedic purposes, like back, like literally like facing backwards, like so serious, like driving everywhere.
Another thing from the beginning of the movie that is a culture shock for potentially males today is just the way the two characters were holding hands so often.
Yeah, they were like very
like come on, like they're like come with me, and like they held hands. They're very familial, and I think that's something we've lost in North America because like when I went across, like when I've worked overseas. Like men were so much closer and touchier. Like you could like the cultures where like the men, like sometimes the women would go up and dance to a certain song, and then the men would go up and dance to a certain song in Cyprus, and like the men would all like hold each other like and like dance like holding hands and stuff. But like it was a very fun, familial, like fraternal thing. And just seeing that in this reminded me that, like, shit, we've lost that as a society.
And it's so funny, too, because, like, the older generations say, like, you know, like, we were more masculine than people are today and men are today. But then we see that in the 50s and how their characters and their friendship is portrayed. It's a lot more...
It's a difference of masculinity, I think. Like, we still were, like, we were more okay with... like masculinity and femininity at the same, there wasn't this separation as much or something. Like there was just being fraternal and familial, and we've kind of lost that. Not to get all serious for such a funny movie, but
but it is an interesting take. I'm glad you brought it up. I always struggle with this because comedy is kind of a lot of like you have to be there to really reiterate stuff. But my favorite scene is definitely the end, where everything kind of works out and each of the character has their coming out moment where they talk to their other person and explain like how they've been dishonest and things work out really well. And I didn't think that the movie could land that properly because it was really hard, especially like knowing the plot points of Marilyn's character, Sugar, being stuck in these relationships with these deadbeat guys and how
they mistreated her. And,
exactly. And knowing Tony's character was somebody who did that like
he
previously.
Was like it was like he was manipulating her and everything, but he was actually doing it in a good place. But like that's like a risky move to take. Obviously, and it's
something that I guess that's maybe one thing that feels slightly a little bit maybe too Hollywoodish of the 50s. Like I don't think you could land that today. The same way without having like just the amazing ending lines of the film.
I have the whole transcript from that. The last lines.
I'm gonna pull it up too. Let's do it. Who do you want to be?
I'll be Jerry. You be Osgood.
All
right.
Or the other way around.
Whatever.
No, you got to put on your Jerry voice as
Geraldine.
Well. Yeah, your Geraldine voice.
Okay. Oh, no, you don't. Osgood, I'm going to level with you. We can't get married at all.
Why not?
Well, in the first place, I'm not a natural blonde.
Doesn't matter.
I smoke all the time.
I don't care.
Well, I have a terrible past. For 3 years now, I've been living with a saxophone player.
I forgive you.
I can never have children.
We can adopt some.
But you don't understand, Osgood. Oh... Jerry finally gives up and pulls off his wig. I'm a man.
Well, nobody's perfect. And and that dumb smile he's got on his face as they're driving a whiz.
Yeah.
And then
that's so perfect.
Jerry kind of sits back and he looks at forward at the screen like, oh.
He's like Jerry looks on with disbelief as Osgood continues smiling with indifference.
That's just how the movie ends. It's beautiful.
Like I honestly loved that because it wasn't what I was expecting, and like there didn't have to be anything else, and it was so funny, and like
it's a great way to end a movie is on like the highest laugh of the film. And that's, like I said, that's so hard to do, and they just nailed the ending.
Besides that, I have another great line from near the end.
Okay, let's do that, and then we want to wrap up.
Okay, yeah. Just like this is like a perfect line for anybody to say to their significant other that I loved from this. It was Shell Oil Guy Jr. Was waiting a little, like he pulls up on the bicycle just as Marilyn shows up at the docks, and he's pretending that he was just waiting there. And he pulls off his earrings.
I was so afraid for him.
I know. I was anxious for him that he wasn't going to pull off the earrings. And then he's sitting there like all suave waiting for it. And Marilyn's like, I'm sorry to make you wait. And then he's like, it's not how long you wait, it's who you're waiting for. And it was just like such a perfect line. And then it gets repeated when he can't drive the boat forwards. He has to drive it backwards. And he's like, sorry, it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then Marilyn throws it back at him. And she's like, it's not how long it takes, it's who you're going with? No, it's who takes you.
Oh, who takes you there.
It's who takes you.
Oh, okay.
So it's so sexual and like so charged because she's trying to be this woman for him. Yeah. And he's trying to be this man who's also being a woman for him. But in this moment, he's being a man for her. And like, it was just such an awesome moment where like he threw that at her and then she threw it back in such like a suave, sexy way, like such a Marilyn way, like full of that gravitas and everything that she just naturally like imbues in a scene.
Yeah, and I love how her character is also trying to set up both of their female characters.
Yeah.
I think that's a really also like great little plot point.
Yeah,
and how they're helping Jerry's character out with Osgood.
Yeah.
I have a question for you because I thought about this at the beginning of the movie, and I don't know where I land on this. Do you think this is a buddy movie?
Yeah.
I think I can like say it's
I was
a buddy movie. I
was gonna mention that as well because like it's a buddy movie that gets mixed up. Like,
yeah, it is. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because but they really are buddies for each other because like obviously they have a certain dynamic in their relationship, but the way it seems at least is that Daphne is gonna go off with this rich guy. And it seemed like when she was so serious, she was just doing it so that Joe could be with Marilyn.
Right.
And then we find out that he was serious because he's actually falling for the ruse.
Yeah.
He's convinced himself that he's going to marry this millionaire and that he's just such a pretty girl and like whatever.
I'm engaged. Congrats. Who's the lucky girl?
I am. Yeah. And
that was another laugh out loud moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this would be a buddy movie to fit along like the Blues Brothers and even Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I think I could watch this with like a friend and both of us really enjoy it, even though there's like a lot of romance and romantic aspects and elements to the movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I think I'd rather watch it with like significant other, but
definitely
buddies would be fine too.
Yeah, if you were in the right kind of mood to have some laugh out loud laughs with a friend, I think this is something where you could definitely get
and
that.
Like again, especially if you're like trying to introduce a friend to like an old movie, like watching a black and white movie and realizing that it's not so like whatever they think a black and white movie is supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I think that's everything that I really want to talk about. I do want to announce the next episode and the movie that we're doing next. So our next film is going to be a foreign film. As well, something different on the episode or on the podcast is we're actually going to have Mike join me on the podcast, and him and I are going to actually discuss the film and get him up to the level with us. Yeah, get him up to speed so that we can do the draft episode together, all three of us. And so I let Mike pick the movie, and we're doing the 1963 Italian foreign film 8½, which is a surrealist comedy drama, apparently one of the most influential movies of all time. And I don't know why. I don't know much about the movie going in, so I'm really excited for it. He said he watched it a few years ago, so he has some fond memories of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to show us.
Yeah, and I'm also really excited to see another perspective in this, because me and you have this great, like, we've always been talking about movies, like, after we watch them, or like like comparing like notes on different movies that we've loved. And it's always fun to find another perspective on like someone else who really understands and enjoys movies and writing and filmmaking and things like that, because like I notice certain things, you notice certain things. Having another like perspective on things is going to be really fun. Unfortunately, I won't be in this one, but I'm always looking forward to seeing another perspective. So maybe I'll have some comments at some point or something about that, or we'll all get together and like kind of grow this.
Yeah, and even later in September, maybe
especially for that.
Yeah, we could talk about that feedback a little bit on the episode, like before we get started.
Yeah,
like some show notes.
Yeah, like when we had that conversation with him on, like, he's been following along and listening, and like he's been excited for certain things, and he's watched certain movies that, like, I'm really looking forward to another perspective on all this.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's a lot to digest when you do these deep dives on these movies. So,
and like we miss things, everyone, like someone else catches them, we reminisce. It's all great.
Yeah, there's no wrong answers when you're doing podcasting.
And especially about movies, because like everybody's seen so many movies, there's always so much to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, and everybody has different tastes, and I'm really excited to show you guys my taste in movies a little bit on the draft video. And I'm excited to watch the rest of the films on my list, because I think there's some real gems there that may not get as much attention as they deserve.
Fair.
So, and I might have said too much already about my movies, so we're going to end her there, I think.
I don't know anything about your movies at this point because I wasn't really listening to you, but besides that, I'm excited.
Cool. All right, well, that's the episode. Have a good one, everyone. I don't know why I struggled through that, but cheers.
Yeah, have a good one.